So, welcome everybody here at the eighth edition of our Rooftop Knowledge Day. This year we called it Rethinking Rooftops. Every year it's something, which is not good English, but it sounds really nice. Last year we were on top of a rooftop in over 30 degrees without water, and we were all complaining that it was so hot, so hot. And this year there's a lot of wind, and luckily you are all very close together. So I think you are like a bunch of penguins who keep each other warm. I'm here all alone up in the wind, but I'll do some exercises. I have room for that. Welcome to this amazing rooftop, this amazing day. We have had a long walk of a kilometer with most of you this morning on Boven op Zuid. A lot of workshops have been there. There have been some excursions that we have made. I'm a bit curious where everybody was. The Groene Kaap, who was there? And was it nice? No, it was not nice. Never visit the Groene Kaap. I heard different stories, but the biodiversity at Floor's rooftop, yeah, so very enthusiastic. We had the experimental rooftop, of course, where, yeah. Was it cold there, or? It was amazing. The Dakakker, the rooftop farm, people who were there, I heard some really good stories about that too. We had the top ops workshop here with the people from the province of the south of Holland who forgot to tell us. They told each other that they could not make it, but they didn't tell us. But I think, Paul, you worked it out, right? You had a good workshop. Really nice, really nice. We had the water workshop with Thijs, amongst others, which they went for the longest. They kept on chatting with each other. I don't know why. Maybe because it was interesting. And the rethinking finance, which was on the second floor, was also Jan Henk. How was it? But they all I don't think so. And whose roof is this? Thomas? Yeah. How was it? Amazing. It's an amazing day. I think this is an amazing rooftop. While I was standing here, I was thinking about how much hassle it was to get this rooftop used. This is one of the most beautiful rooftops of Rotterdam, and it is never used. Why is it never used? Because the owner has rented it out to someone who doesn't use it. So it's this building, and when you rent this building, you get the rooftop with it. And he sub-rented it to someone who also doesn't use it and who doesn't want anyone to use it at all. So they said, no, it's not possible. You can't do anything here. So you had 3 layers of people, and in the end, no. Well, we got the permission. And then I was here with the owner. I said, well, it doesn't look good. All the grass sticking out. We're going to cut that before you do your thing. I said, no, please don't do that. But it looks horrible. So no, people that come here really love this. So I hope you like it that they didn't cut it, but they had the intention to cut it. So this is our plenary program, and first we thought it was nice to have someone from the municipality of Rotterdam, which we work together with very often, to welcome you in Rotterdam. And I want warm applause, because we need warmth, for our head of urban planning, Matthijs van Ruiven. Matthijs, how nice for you to be here. You're head of urban planning, so you're head of everything that happens on rooftops and what gets developed in Rotterdam, right?
On rooftops, on the ground floor, all the buildings. Yes, you could say that, with a big team of colleagues, of course.
With a big team of colleagues. And where are we in Rotterdam? How are we doing?
Well, to start with, my office is there, so that's where I am quite often, looking at this unused roof garden. Now I know I just have to squat it with my colleagues. I think we can squat houses.
I think you can.
Perhaps we can squat rooftops from now on as well. I see Paul, my colleague, one of my colleagues, nodding already. So we're going to do that, right? Okay, yeah. But where are we? Well, first of all, thank you for coming to Rotterdam, or if you live in Rotterdam, thank you for attending this festival, because it's, I think, very important to talk about rooftops. If you ask me or anyone else at the city, but there are two major challenges, you could say. One of them, you know them, of course, but they are everywhere. Climate sustainability is on the one hand being Paris-proof, sustainable. Biodiversity, really important. On the other hand, you have the social part of city development or living in a city, which is also a big challenge, because we see polarization, you could say, on topics, but also poor and old and rich. We want to be an inclusive city, and rooftops can play an important role. And we have to, because in Paris-proof, we're a long way away from being Paris-proof, so we're not going to solve that today. Big steps needed. And also, I think on the social part, we have quite some issues here in Rotterdam. Still a lot of neighborhoods where the average income is only half of the Dutch average income, for instance. But rooftops are always fun. That's where you meet people. And meeting people, meeting places is an important factor in the social programming of a city. So therefore, I think rooftops can play an important role, and also in sustainability, climate, rooftops can also play an important role.
And what can you do as a city? Because, for example, this beautiful rooftop, well, you cannot do anything. It's their rooftop, and you don't want to use. So what's the influence for you as a city planner, or for people like Paul who are busy with the program on rooftops? How tight are your hands?
Well, not so tight, if you ask me. But you have to look at it you could look at it in a formal way or an informal way. In Rotterdam, we try to have a conversation with everyone, saying that we're doing it together.
You're saying it, or you're doing it?
And we're doing it. We're saying it, and we were doing it. Like here, we have a rooftop program, but you, as a private party, have the festival and putting in a lot of energy in it, and together we make it happen. So that is, I think, important. But the other hand here, it is green. There is water storage. It's not as hot if it would only be only these little stones, if it would only be the bitumen. So this is okay. It's unfortunate that it's not being used, but it is okay on it ticks many boxes already. So that is a good thing. And I think when you address that to people, to developers with an existing roof or a new roof to be developed, and you show them examples like this, then perhaps we can't just demand it, but I think we can get it by talking with them.
Okay, thank you very much for this short introduction to Rotterdam. We go further without you.
Okay, enjoy everyone. Yeah.
It's very nice. And Matthijs is also in the committee of recommendation of Rotterdamse Dakendagen. So that's nice to have friends like that to support you. This is a picture we stumbled upon a few months ago, which we liked very much. But okay, what is happening here? And before we start with our keynote speakers, I want to tell you about these people. These are two... Oh, something... these are two people living in a neighborhood in London, and they wanted to start energy facility. A power plant, literally, in their neighborhood, and they wanted to do it themselves with solar panels. And they needed money and permissions, everything. And they started a crowdfunding, and for that crowdfunding, they wanted attention. And to get attention, where's a good place to get attention? On a rooftop. So they put their bed on a rooftop, and they say, we're not gonna come out off the rooftop until the funding is ready. I found that very good rooftop use. And so we contacted them, and we said, can you come over and tell your story? He said, no, we're on holidays then, but we have a small movie and we wanted to show it to you, just because we like the story so much.
Are you frightened up there?
Yeah.
really am.
Power to the people. The couple taking fundraising to new heights to bring solar energy to their street.
It's put them flat on the ground and tie them, and then when the wind stops we can put them back up. No street in Britain yet has gone fully onto renewable energy.
Yes. Other street having a conversation. Should we do this? Look, this whole street has done it.
If you look up at the roof, Dan is still up there.
You think you can do this?
Yeah.
The financial and ecological crises are intertwined.
It's not an even kill. You know, people work and people are poor people such as myself, and we're struggling.
We act like the government, create our own stimulus, our own Green New Deal.
The reality is if the government was to get every home in this country, turn it into a power station, then the cost of that would be paid for by the sun itself within about a 10-year period. It's just absurd that that's not happening, so why don't we make it happen? Should we hit the street then?
Yes.
Good luck.
We're going to knock on some doors. We'd like as many people as possible to put these posters up.
We believe we can become a zero carbon street. We're going to raise the money to offer everyone, no strings attached, free solar energy. We're going to sell art, and then with the proceeds we'll buy all the solar panels. So now it's like a political campaign, like this is what the government should be doing. And we're seeing ourselves as putting a Green New Deal stimulus into the street.
Dear neighbour, we're now moving to putting panels on the first 20 houses on the street. You would have thought on a street of 134 houses, 20 houses would not be an issue. Oh. You, because of the money, are trying to put the brakes on. The point was we wanted to do the whole street, but yeah, financially we've got a bigger challenge ahead.
You've got all these amazing ideas, and I'm like, where's the money? You know, because we don't have enough yet.
I know, but we will.
Just reached the first level.
If you happen to be taking a stroll down Lynmouth Road in Walthamstow, you may be in for quite a surprise if you look up there, because you might find Dan Edelstein and Hilary Powell bedding down for the night.
We're staying on the roof until we raise enough money to get our power station built. Okay, good night.
We'll sleep up here every night until we've raised enough money. We are certainly a cold experience.
Yeah.
But it's not only our street, it's also going to help rapidly decarbonise other people's neighbourhoods. We are working with Solar for Schools to get all our schools in Waltham Forest generating their own energy so they can save money and reduce their carbon emissions too.
It's about the growing awakening. We're seeing all around us that we can have the power to make change.
Oh, I've done it!
And just before Christmas, £100,000 was raised, which allows them to move to the next phase of the project.
Who knows? Everybody in Waltham Forest, everyone in the UK might end up with solar panels. It would be so amazing.
I'd love to be a part, even if that's a small part, in creating some change.
Working together in collective action, we could all make a difference and be powerful.
And change the way Britain powers itself and the way the British understand power itself.
Some inspiration for collective action. So now we're over to our first speaker, but not before I tell you a bit of the rules of today. We don't have questions from the audience. We chat with each other after the whole program, but I'm going to ask every speaker, they don't know that yet, but now they hear it, to ask a question to the speaker before them. So the first one, Ike doesn't have to do anything. But the second, Mike, I asked Mike to ask a question to Ike before she goes up. And I'm going to tell you now about Ike, but not before I've introduced myself. I forgot, because I think everybody knows me, but of course not everybody knows me. I am Leon van Geest, and together with Nikki over there, who's putting her hand up, we are the two directors of the Rotterdam Rooftop Days. A foundation that wants to stimulate rooftop use, and for that we try to do great things on rooftop and bring all rooftop professionals of Europe together. That being said, so everybody now knows who I am. Nobody knows yet, not nobody. Some people do not know who Ike is. Ike Benschop works with the National Rooftop Plan, het Nationaal Dakenplan, and which is a collaboration between public administrations, commercial companies, and knowledge institutions. And some years ago, that's already 5 years ago, they made a summary of all facts and values about rooftop use. And just some weeks ago, today, even they finished a new a brand new update. And at our request, they also made an English version for us. So she will tell all about that. And the thing I liked is that she also not only will do the values, but also do the myths and misunderstandings about rooftop use. And I think this will all fuel our future conversations about rooftops. Can I give a warm welcome for Ike Benschop? Je mag gewoon naar mij knikken.
Right, I'm not. Well, thank you. I'm very nervous to do this talk in English because I never talk in English for my work, but I'll try. Highly densely populated country we are in the Netherlands, and it's already said by you, and everybody is very aware of it. But we have a lot of transitions to make in this country, and it's a shame if we don't use the roofs. So that's why we also work together with public partners, private partners, as you said, knowledge clubs, but also environmental organizations where I work myself. So we can all work on those issues. Energy production, water collection, more nature, and more social space on the roofs. These are the 4 items that we work on. But we can only do that when there's good regulation, good laws, nice financial constructions, and also people that can do the work. So we need education on this topic. So that's where we work on. And good information, high quality information is necessary. And that's why we're so proud to present this document today. You're laughing at me. And I'll talk you through all the facts and values. So we can go to the next one. I've said this. This is the illustration we have made, and all the values and facts are drawn in this picture. And I'll talk you through. So you can go to the next one. And the first one is the water management. When you have a green roof, and especially when there's also water retention, a blue roof, a computer designed blue roof, we have water on the roof. So this evaporates, and also it goes slower. In the end, it goes slower to the street level and also to sewer systems. So this is a big advantage that also the sewer systems won't be over flooded, because when sewers get over flooded, we have contamination in the surface water. So the more we keep the water on the roofs, the littler problems we have with the water quality. The outdoor cooling, when water evaporates, when there's enough water on the roof, in the green roofs, there's a cooling effect by evaporation. And this can be a big difference. In the summer, the surface of the roof, a black roof will get 70 to 90 degrees Celsius, but when it's green, it will only reach 35 degrees. So that's a big difference for urban climate. What else was it? Oh yeah, the indoor cooling. It's also very interesting. It is said that it will be about 5 to 7% difference of indoor temperature when there's a green roof. And there must be enough water on the green roof, because when it gets dry, the cooling effect gets less or none. So as long as there's water in the green roof, there's a cooling effect. So that makes that we need less air conditioning, because an air conditioning mostly will reduce the temperature with 5 degrees Celsius. So when a green roof makes it 5 to 7% less warm, we don't need the air conditioning. So that's a big energy saving as well. And then we have the social things. You also talked about it. When people can meet on the roofs, it's very good, because we want people to meet. You can do sport facilities, you can do a rooftop bar, you can do a vegetable garden. There's a lot of possibilities. Art on the roof we saw today. So that's also what we work on with the National Roof Plan. Health and well-being. I know that my neighbor here is going to talk about health and well-being, because you're from the hospital here in the city. But research has shown that people are when in hospital, they have a shorter stay in the hospital after surgery. They have less painkillers. They use less painkillers when they have a green surrounding, because it's just better for our human being. And the value, of course, you want to know what it does with the value of your building. My colleague is talking about this, has been talking today about it. But it is shown that when you have a sustainable roof on your building, the value of your building goes up. And also on these, what you call it, the label scores, when you have green, biodiversity, or water retention on your roof, also a roof where you can meet each other. It's good for the labeling, the scores on the labels. The biodiversity, we can be short. It's good for biodiversity when you have plants on your roof. And we prefer the local plants, and we prefer the biggest biodiversity in plants. And it's good to create places where there's shade and places where there's sun. So you have a bigger diversity of plants growing on your roof. And the fun thing is then when you place solar panels with the green roof, you have already created the shade. And also ground breeding birds, they can find a place on the roofs, which is also nice. The oyster, what's the school extra in het Engels? I looked it up. Oyster catcher birds, they also breed on the roof. The sound, yes, green roofs absorb sound. Of course, this is dependent on what kind of greens plants are on the roofs, the thickness of the ground, and the water in the ground, how much sound is absorbed. But it can be a difference to 3 decibel. Research has shown. Lifespan of the roofing, normally the roofing goes for 35 or 40 years with good use and good maintenance. But when there's a green top on the roof, it will go longer. It will double the lifespan. So we will go to 70 years. And this is longer than the period that is counted. We count with for the long-term maintenance of buildings. That's mostly 50 years. So when you can count with 70 years lifespan of your roof, that's very interesting also financially. The solar panels on green. I think most of you have heard that when solar panels are cooler, they have a higher efficiency, a higher production. And they produce best when it's about 25 degrees, but every, I think, third degree, I forget. But anyways, when it's the solar panels get warmer, they produce less. When they stay cooler, they produce more. And with the green, they stay cooler. And we say 5 to 7% higher production. But in Sydney, there's been a research, and they say it goes up to 16%. We wrote that down, but then it's important that the solar panels are placed a bit higher than normally on the ground. There should be about 30 centimeters between the lowest part of the solar panel and the green, so that there can be enough light and sun and water on the plants. Wind energy, we can't put the big turbines on the roofs, but we can do those small turbines. And of course, you can make a combination with water retention, with green, with a red roof where you can meet. So these were all the values and facts. They're all written down in this publication. But as Leon said, we also have myths and misconceptions. And I'll talk you through a couple of them. A lot of people, I hear them say, yeah, we have CO2 storage on the roof because there are plants growing and they take CO2 out of the air. But German research says the amount of CO2 produced or emitted by producing the green roof is so much that you need 48 years of a growing roof growing on the roof. But also people say we really need more research because maybe it depends on what kind of plants you have, or maybe we need more research on it because this is maybe a type of plant which is not always used. And also for the nitrogen capture, it could be interesting to do more research. The insulation effect in the winter, we hear people say, yeah, there's also, it insulates in winter, but it's a really minimal effect. Sometimes it does a little, but yeah, we still need good insulation. Just make sure you organize that well when you work on the roof. Absorbing air pollution, yes, it takes a little particles out of the air, but not so much. So we don't put it as a value, this minimalizing air pollution because of green roofs. Then we have the algae production and bacteria. People are afraid when there's a lot of water on the roof that we can get bacteria, which we don't want. But this only occurs when there's a temperature above 25 degrees for longer than 24 hours. And that doesn't occur when there's a green roof. It doesn't get that, the temperature doesn't stay that high for so long. So that's a misconception. Greater risk of fire, no, because there's also water in the plants, and it is not a bigger risk of fire. That's also noted, and putting a green roof on your building is just safe. The frost damage also is not a bigger risk. You can read it in this publication. The risk of roof leaking, yeah, that is a risk if you don't use the right materials, because when there are seeds on the roof and the roots grow into the roof, you can have leakage. But if you have good material, root-resistant material or extra membrane on the roof, that doesn't occur. So then it's a myth that it will get wrong. And the last one is that solar panels, you can put them up to the edge, and it happens that people put solar panels all over the roof till the edge of the roof, but that is not allowed by legislation. We need an area of 2 meters around for maintenance so people can work on the roof. So we listed that also as a misconception. And that's what is in the publication. I hope it will help you all by having your talk with partners in your own area, and we'll make more sustainable and multifunctional roofs.
So where can we get this publication?
On our website. I think Rose is now pushing the button. on the website, which is noted here, dakenplan.nl, so in Dutch and in English.
Okay, we will all go there. Thank you very much. And then, as I promised, we have a question from the next speaker. Mike, come up here. Mike came all the way from Manchester here for his next keynote. Do you have a question for Ike?
I do. Fantastic presentation. I'm really interested to hear from your expertise. Has there been a rise in interest in using rooftops post-COVID, post kind of the pandemic in a way? Is that something you've come across in your extensive research?
I think it does, yes. I think people are more aware of their surroundings because we were all working at home and looking out on our roofs. So I think yes. And also, yeah, I was talking to people here, and we are in a green bubble, of course. But I think, yeah, there's more awareness of the potential which is on the roofs. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, one more applause for Ike. And she's not alone in doing this. It's the whole National Dakenplan who made this whole thing, this collective effort, which we talked about. Mike is actually called Michael Hartman. He is a professor of urban sustainability at the University of Salford and a co-lead of the Salford Care and Urban Farm Hub. His work surrounds exploring new ways of enabling sustainability within cities, from radical greening to urban agriculture, guerrilla gardening, and beyond. He has been involved in over 50 projects in Africa, North America, Europe, and across the UK, of course. And he's the author of Informal Urban Agriculture, which critically explores the guerrilla gardening and urban farming movements. Did I catch it all now?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Then a warm welcome for Michael Hartman.
Thank you very much. So, as the introduction said, my name is Mike Hartman. I'm Professor of Urban Sustainability. And like every academic, I've probably put way too many slides in this for 15 minutes. So I do apologize at the rate in which I'm going to go through this, but hopefully they'll be made available a bit later on for you all. So I want to take you on a journey today. I want to take you on a kind of a general journey. I'm a geographer. I'll give you a broad meta overview of some of the work that we're doing around the world with regards to innovative use of rooftops. I'm going to show you some informal activity, some inspirational activity, all the way through to food production in our rooftops at scale as well, and show up some resources that hopefully will be useful for you. All these pictures, by the way, are my own in the background. Probably don't have too much time to go over them. This is a sports stadium, Boston Red Sox, growing in the sports stadium using the rooftop there. And again, this is in Oregon. I'm doing some of the work over there in a restaurant linking through to a small kind of community gardening facility. So some really inspirational projects. As was mentioned before, we do projects all over the world, in Africa, all the way through to North America. We've got some Horizon work, Horizon 2020 projects here in the EU that I'll link through to as well. But we're here today to talk about rooftops. And these are just some of the images of me working on rooftops around the world. I've embedded myself with green activists, people who informally colonize rooftops because they're fed up of the bureaucracy, the risk assessments, the insurance, the cost. They just go out there and get stuck in, regardless of whether it's illegal or not. All the way through to taking my students to Barcelona here with a high-tech hydroponics setup, so exploring technology on rooftops, and obviously New York City, Brooklyn, the famous ones you often see out there, large scale. Again, very inspirational, very forward-thinking, very radical rooftop growing programs. So just to reflect on this, now is really exciting. That's where I link through to my last question to the presenter before. I've never seen so much of an appetite for rethinking our rooftop spaces, using them in innovative ways. Just some of the data in the UK here, lots of funding, lots of innovative funding coming through, and again, a growth in the roof space that's being used. In Manchester, we've seen a doubling again of the space post-COVID. A lot of people opening up these spaces, not just for green or productive activities, but for other creative practices too. You can see here, just again, one of the videos some of my researchers took, a charity, the National Trust, transforming some roof space and a disused railway line, like the High Line in New York City, a charity who's pushing that forward, all the way through to private actors as well. So in this case, private companies and businesses who've been investing in this space. In the top right-hand corner here is Europe's largest living wall, and again, rooftop space that's been a catalyst for that wider environment too. Guerrilla gardeners as well, though. It isn't just the big private actors, the businesses who are driving forward this agenda. We're seeing evidence that communities are coming together to use space in different ways. These are some of the photos of guerrilla gardeners on the ground. But if we look at evidence around the world, we can see that there are plenty of colonized rooftops as well. Here in New York City, through to countries all over the world, London, a whole book here about how they colonized a space outside of their apartment window. Linking through to it is an act of resistance in Hong Kong, in this case here, colonizing space for productive purposes. And in California with the famous Ron Finley, who's been advocating again for these more creative ways of enabling community gardens and urban farms right in the heart of our cities. Again, really inspirational. I mentioned before that I want to focus in the limited time that I've got on production in the city, because that's where I feel a lot of the excitement is. There's a lot of excitement about urban farming in our city, and obviously some of you have been to some fantastic examples here as well in the Netherlands. Just some of the academic material behind this. Brooklyn Grange in New York City, one of the famous ones, producing a lot of produce each year. Lots of academic studies looking at the potential that we can do. In New York City, saying that we could produce leafy greens for a large portion of the population if we were to convert many of the rooftops for farming purposes. Indeed, in Manchester, we've got our own rooftop scapes that are being used in this way. With hydroponics, this almost mosaic of a rooftop landscape with everyday production combined with high-tech solutions as well. This is Solar City using a heritage asset on top of an old printworks factory to grow food, house bees, and that links through to restaurants down underneath that landscape as well. All the way through to aquaponics as well, so using fish, these kind of closed loop systems in Liverpool this is. So you'll see on the right-hand side here, Farm Urban in Liverpool, who have been growing on rooftops there, and again, creating a business around this agenda. Ironically, they also grow underground. So this is using disused tunnels in Liverpool that were once used during the shipping trade for growing food right in the heart of these cityscapes. If you're interested, there's loads of resources. This is one of my papers that you can have a look at in a bit more depth a bit later on, once the slides are distributed, I think. But going forward, I think there's a lot more that we could be doing. We've done some spatial assessments to look at the potential for rooftop farming in Manchester, in many other towns and cities around the world. I've seen some really innovative tools from this event as well, open source tools to explore that too. Again, lots of studies have modeled this in Boston and other cityscapes to show the potential for change and what we can do right in the heart of even the most complex of urban environments. All the way through to the businesses that are starting up now as well. We're seeing innovation around business models. Again, this is Nobelrot in Oregon. We've got, I feel every week, a new rooftop farm that's being set up around the world in Paris, in Chicago, again in Manchester in the UK. It's something that has really been a lot more popular since COVID, a lot more investment in this practice. Obviously, there's a lot of barriers. This is one in Salford from many years ago, one of the few in my city that unfortunately failed because the business model wasn't set up correctly. So we need to be careful, again, how we're enabling these models. There's a lot of barriers, obviously weight capacity, accessibility being one of them when we're talking about farming in the city. Again, if you're interested, we've got a paper that's just coming out now on looking at using car parks. And this is actually in the finance workshop a minute ago as well, where we can use car parks. We've actually engaged people around cities. We've engaged car park owners to look at, can we use some of these spaces that exist already? Obviously, with restrictions around transport, private cars coming into cities, can we be more creative with using the top levels of these for things like farming, allotments, community gardens, and so on and so forth? Again, I do apologize the rate at which I'm going through, but these resources a bit later on might be helpful or useful to look into in a bit more depth. Green social prescribing is a hot topic at the moment, and we've done some investigation around this. It connects through to the next presenter, looking at the impact of rooftops in this particular environment. We explored about 9,000 studies in our British Medical Journal paper that is open access and you can read in your own time. And one of these was on rooftop interventions. And similar to the presenter before, the data shows that these have substantial impact on people's mental health, well-being, the physical, maneuverability as well. It can make a big difference. We look at some of the science behind this. It can help to reduce pressure on hospitals. It can reduce pressure on A&E departments. The social return on investment can be quite significant depending on the model, the type of intervention that's put in place. Obviously, these are very generic, but it gives you an idea of the impact of the potential of converting our rooftops to some of these spaces. And going forward, I think there's a lot of hope, a lot of, again, inspiration and potential that's being driven forward, again, post-COVID a lot of the time. We're seeing catalyst projects that are helping to transform our cityscapes. This is the largest urban farm in the UK, in the top right-hand corner. That has acted as a catalyst for the transformation of one of the most deprived towns in the country. Millions of pounds it's managed to get from the government and other sources as well. And that's been instrumental in change. On this picture here is actually Manchester Cathedral. They started beekeeping on top of the cathedral. And because of that activity, it spread to other buildings around the city. Because they were thinking outside the box, because they were enablers, they helped to transform a lot of Manchester at the time. I'd really urge you to have a look at André Villion's book on continuous productive urban landscapes to look at how we connect roof spaces to our everyday landscapes as well. And again, make sure that they're part of this wider network. Andre's work is exceptional. He's done a lot of work over many years as an architect by background as well. And we're currently doing some work. In fact, I go straight to Prague after this for some work with the Czech University of Life Sciences, where we're doing work around different types of material to enable rooftop growing. Biochar, for example, and other types of materials to tackle things around weight capacity, but also increasing productivity. Don't ask me any questions about this. I'm a geographer, not a soil scientist, so this is a little bit above my head in some respects. But it shows you, again, the potential, the innovation, the forward-thinking nature of some of the research that's going on out in this environment. So, pulling all of this together, and again, I do apologize at the sheer volume of information and slides coming across here. What we need to do is we need more forward-thinking, radical policy making, more key actors enabling this. And if you're interested, you can read my piece in with the World Economic Forum here on looking at how we could enable things like green or productive rooftops going forwards. What we need is, again, more innovation like this. New York City have got an office for urban agriculture and investing substantially into this practice, more so than a lot of other cityscapes that we see. And we also need to think about inclusivity. This is one of my latest papers that only came out 2 days ago, actually, on working with particularly marginalized communities, looking at how we can include different multicultural communities in these initiatives as well. My biggest bugbear about Manchester is none of the green or productive rooftops are accessible to members of the public. You have to pay or you have to know somebody to get access to these spaces. And we need to think about social value and, again, the inclusive cityscape when we're enabling these wonderful schemes to happen. But again, you know, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening out there. Have a look at some of Bradley Garrett's work. These are urban explorers who are colonizing rooftops, underground tunnels, to raise awareness about the rights of the city, raise awareness again about innovation and what we can do with our urban landscapes. We're starting to see innovation around using even bus shelters on a micro scale. Cumulatively, the impact of this can be quite substantial. My university actually has the Ignition Living Lab, which is a test facility for green roofs. It's got a whole kind of financial unit. It's looking at financial models. It's working with the regional government on this as well. So if you're interested, have a look at what some of my colleagues are doing with the Ignition Living Lab and some of the material they've published that's open access. There's lots of studies out there that have looked at potential. We can do this to the cows come home, but we need to make sure that translates to reality and action on the ground as well. This is just some colleagues at Lancaster University who've done some modelling around what we can produce in our cities if we use the available land that is there. And we need more research projects. I'll always say this as a researcher. We need more funding, more research projects. We've got a Horizon 2020 project starting in September that is looking at upscaling green social prescribing. It's led by Barcelona. It's a 4-year project. So do have a look if you get a chance at GREEME when it starts in September. It's across most countries in Europe and looking at models, financial models for enabling some of these game-changing projects to happen. And, you know, we need stuff like this. This is a project that we do with our colleagues at Toronto Metropolitan University. That's a repository for innovative practice globally. And I've just clicked here on the rooftops element. It's got all of it's free to download. It's got all the technical aspects, the financing, the designs. So if you're interested in how they were enabled, you can look through in your own time. And there's even a book on Carrot City as well that Joe, June, and Mark, lovely people, have done. It's a wonderful book, very visual as well. So if you want to have a look at that, I think it's quite a cheap find on Amazon nowadays. It's been out for a few years already. But the website's free. So do have a look at the website and have a look at the rooftops and the information that's on there if you're interested. I've put lots of evidence up there for you, so you can have a look a bit later on if the slides are there. And if you want to get in contact with me, as long as there's no publishers in the room, I'm happy to send any papers for free because I know a lot of them are behind paywalls. So hopefully that's not recorded anywhere, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. But if you want to get in touch with me about any information, feel free to reach out. Really keen to connect you through or help in any way that I can. Again, sorry for going so quickly. It's such an exciting topic. Hopefully that's been interesting and useful. And thank you very much for your time and for organising this as well.
Thank you very much, Mike. You're not totally free yet because
Sorry.
we have one question from the audience who is also the next speaker. Lisbeth.
Yeah, I want to know what your rooftop at home looks like. Are you growing veg or?
It's a good question. I live in kind of like a townhouse. We're actually moving house at the minute. But I don't have a garden at the minute. So when I do, my intention is to grow veg there. Opposite where I live, though, they've put a green roof on a domestic dwelling, which is interesting. So one of the very first ones that I've seen. So yeah, good question, though. Thank you.
Okay, that was a good question. Then, so Lisbeth is already on stage. I like Lisbeth a lot. It's almost, we all do. Yeah, we all do. We have one of the, this is a very nice rooftop. The Dakendagen where you've been, the Groene Kaap is very nice. But the 8th floor of our new academic hospital within the city center has 38 fruit trees standing there. And it is an amazing place to be and to come out. And why is that there? And everybody in the hospital and everybody I know agrees there's only one reason why that fruit orchard is there, and that's because of Lisbeth. And she won't tell it herself in her presentation, so I'm telling it. Rooftops are never about only knowledge and construction and things like that. They are always individual people who really want something and put their fist on the table and say, we gotta do this one way or another. And Lisbeth was one of these persons. And that's why we chose her to be our rooftop hero of 2017. You can see it here. Woo! And we thought it would be really nice to see, because they called it a healing environment. Is it really a healing environment? We did see some data from Mike yet, but we want to hear also the story. Also, if it's not conclusive research, but what do we know by now? And we have asked Lisbeth to come here, and she's gonna explain it to us.
Thank you. Well, yes, the story of Erasmus MC and its rooftop garden. It all started with a walnut, you could say. Well, this is the symbol, of course, because the walnut trees are one of the species that are on the roof. But the seed was sown by an artist impression from Jülich and Geluk, our landscape architects, and they drew a picture of the skyline of Rotterdam. It was quite different from nowadays. And actually, if you look over the river, that's Erasmus MC, so it's quite close by, and it is in the city, and well, especially the skyline here has changed, but some of the buildings are still there. But this was really the seed that was sown in our brains. And at the time, and Mieke van Weterings was part of that, we looked at evidence-based design. How can we do the right thing? What is known already? And there's two theories, and this is the one that is everybody uses. The story of the research by Roger Ulrich about the reduction in length of stay and reduction in pain medication. Whether you look at a green roof, or no, not a green roof, sorry, at nature or at a brick wall. And actually, we are replicating this study at Erasmus MC because we had the old hospital standing in front of the clinic, but there's no patients that are in the hospital for 6 to 9 days and just go home when they feel like it. So it is very quick turnaround, and it's the moment you can shower, and then you're much better off at home to heal. So it's tricky to do this. And we also wonder whether it is the greenery or it's daylight, because a building that is very close to your window is also sheltering you from daylight. But that's maybe a spoiler for our research. But this started the whole movement of evidence-based design, and it was done matching 22 people to 22 patients to 22 patients, and that in an article in Science, everybody, I think Mike would kill for that, to have a publication based on such a small sample. The other theory is that it's not stress reduction, but it is also attention restoration. So if you have been working in the hospital, you have been in quite intense situations, then going outside, having a breath of fresh air, the wind in your hair, everything we are experiencing right now is very restorative. It gives you new energy and you can go back to work. And actually this was researched with nurses working in the ICU, and this prevented burnout. So again, that is if you're looking at green prescribing, this is very interesting. But back to our dream. A lot of people have to help to put up, to realize a dream, whether that is a house in a community in the US, or it is in a hospital in the city center. Some of the facts, this is, I know of course how big it is, but it's 3,500 square meters, so it's quite big. It's in 2 parts, and there's 38 trees on top. And if you have an opportunity to visit it tomorrow, if the guide is there, probably she'll ask you the question, do you have any idea where the trees are on the spots where they are? I always ask that question. And of course, they are on top of the columns, so that the soil, the weight of the soil can be there. We have trees, we have all kind of grass, shrubs, and honeysuckle, and bamboo seating. And this is one of the pictures from the construction. But to get this together, it was not just an idea and everybody said, oh yes, let's do this. This is another $1 million to that big project. Let's just do it. They said, are we sure we want a garden? Shouldn't we have another MRI machine? And of course, that's a valid question. And we thought that, even in 2007, we thought, maybe this is something that we can use for fundraising. And we already started to take shrubs from the only surviving tree from the Koolsingel Hospital, who had been the predecessor of the Dijkzicht Hospital. And we put them with a grower, but they were grown so fast, the project didn't go so quick. And it's difficult to raise money for something that will be there in 10 years. Doesn't work. So you really have to convince your project partners that you have to invest in this. And luckily we came across a project partner being the municipality of Rotterdam. And they wanted to subsidize part of the project because of the water retention and all these kind of things. And now it's there for many to enjoy. And we get a lot of people that come for filming and want, I think this was part of the promotion video for Eurovision Song Contest. So no effort spared. So yes, we roll out a couple of uniforms and a bed, but still people do use it and people go there in a bed. And the story is that a patient used to take physiotherapy exercises on the roof garden. And just to be able to provide that kind of environment is important. And you see that a lot of people go there for lunch. And we also found something that we hadn't expected at all. But our neighbor at the hospital is the Natural History Museum. And they had an intern. And they did a study on many rooftops, I think, in the city. And they caught a bug that had not been identified before. So this is a very special Erasmus wasp. It was dead because it had been trapped. So we do not know if there are any other. But there you go. And of course, the question is, does it work? And yeah, do we need to prove that it works if you see how it's used and all that? But Leon asked me, have you researched this? And I tried last year with a student, and well, that wasn't totally the success I had hoped, but I hope to go back there and ask people, why are you using the roof, and what do you experience? What does it do for you? And do you come back? And who are you? And well, are there things that you miss or that you would like to see? So there's more to do, and if we've done that study, I'll probably be here again. And I asked this lady for her permission, and this was just 2 weeks ago, to show you that that it's still open. Question: was it open during COVID? No, it was not, because it neighbors on a ward that was used as a COVID ICU. So you didn't want people there, and also it's a bit difficult to control the distances and so on. Because when the rooftop just opened, people were complaining that it was such a popular place, so they closed it after 10 o'clock, just to provide the quiet that you would also expect in a hospital. And of course, the rooftop is now known as the cherry on top of the cake of that beautiful big new hospital. But it starts with a seed being planted in somebody's brain, and as this walnut would have to do, it needs to grow up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liesbeth. And again, we have a question from our next speaker, I hope, because she didn't prepare for anything. But Anja, do you have a question for Liesbeth?
Yes, thank you, Liesbeth, for this exciting story. I was wondering, this roof is for patients and staff. Were the plants and flowers planted on the roof somehow adapted to the users? Was there thinking about how these users could benefit from specific plants and flowers?
Yes, the idea was that they would provide smells, like the honeysuckle and the lavender, and that it would be green all year. So that's why the grasses are there, and they're grasses that are well tended, but they're not mown every week, so to speak. And there's places that provide a little bit shade, and so and there's places to sit. And what I totally forgot to tell you is that it's on top of a technical floor. So there's here and there's some technical outlets that need to reach the surface of, or need to reach the roof as well. So it's well, yeah, it's a complicated design, but it's looking at the different senses to stimulate them.
Thank you.
Okay, one more applause for Liesbeth and her amazing garden. I again apologize for the wind we are in today and why you're all so cold, but we asked for only one thing for this weekend, and that was no rain and a little bit of sunshine, and they did that, so we're very happy with it, so we don't complain. Next up is Anja Overdiek. Oh, there we go. Anja, because it's a difficult thing to say. Anja is Professor Cybersocial Design at the Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences. And her field is techno-social context for sustainability transitions. I really like that sentence. And she uses theoretical design-led and action research methodology based on more than human-centered, not human-centered, but more than human-centered approach. The floor is all yours, Anja. Very nice to have you here.
Thank you, Leon. Hello. So we've heard a lot about rooftops, about specific data, and also about the prospects, the exciting prospects of them. I would like to zoom out from the rooftops now to the whole city and look at probable and possible futures of the city, and how we need to change also our approach and our design approach to make desirable futures happen. I don't think I need to explain why we need to become active for biodiversity in this group of people. We really need to change our ways of production, consumption. We need to preserve nature to be able to sustain what we have and to increase biodiversity in the future. Next one, please. Most of you know what biodiversity is, I think. I also don't need to explain that. But what I would like to draw on a little bit is the approach of Western societies to nature. What we find a lot, you've heard I do a lot of action research with citizens, with people who look and do decisions in the city every day. And what we find always is that there is this dichotomy thinking, which we have learned in the last 300 years with Enlightenment and modernism, that we have biodiversity and nature here, and we have culture and technology there. And we see this very much still back in our cities, where we have houses here. And that is why the rooftop movement is so important, because it changes this dichotomous thinking. What we looked into with our research group is drawing on this still dominant dichotomous thinking. What will futures really look like? What will probable and also desirable futures of the city look like if we just look at this dichotomy between nature and technology? And we came up with these 4 scenarios. So 4 different types of city futures, which I will walk through with you now. So the first one was the post-apocalypse, the city with less nature and less technology. That is a city where global technology systems have collapsed because even the wealthier countries could not produce sustainable energy needed for them. Many humans and animals did not survive the natural catastrophes that broke out due to global warming. Some humans survive in local communities that use and exchange the materials and products produced in the past. And whoever thinks this is out of the possible to think this, I think if we look at the exponential nature of biological systems, that when we reach these topping points, really a lot of systems we are using now will not work anymore. It's not so improbable anymore. So this is a probable future. Let's look at the next one, where we would have more nature and less technology. We would call that future back in time. That is a future where people realized that modern technology was in the hands of those in power, the 2% rich on Earth. In a global movement, technology development was limited and traditional ways of living together in healthy biological ecosystems were rediscovered. People fled from the cities, and over time, human population declined. Also, this might be a very probable future, seen the developments which we also see socially now, not only in Europe. Let's switch to the next probable future, which is the biodiversity. In the biodiversity, tech and nature merged and supported each other. Technology was used to support non-humans and humans in the city and to enable them to live a healthy life in ecosystems that served the needs of all living. Biodiversity was monitored and cared for together with citizens, and cities strived for socio-ecological prosperity. This, of course, I won't tell you something very, very surprising now. This is a possible future, but possibly also the most desirable future. But already in this description of how this future look like, you probably see that a lot of thinking we have now needs to change to achieve this. For example, that cities strive for socio-ecological prosperity and not for financial prosperity. And then we have the last one, Technopolis, more tech, more nature, where governments, less nature, more tech, less nature, where governments and big enterprises were investing in technologies that protected people from effects of global warming. You know, these shields shields and technologies which would shoot carbon monoxide from the air. We have these developments already now. And preserved nature reserves would still be necessary, but mostly outside of the cities that probably wealthy humans were allowed to visit on a limited basis, ensured on ecological they ensured the ecological balance on Earth. So this is another probable and possible future, I think. You've seen these four futures. I've already revealed that we think, our research group thinks we should really strive, and also as designers strive, also as designers of technology strive for this biodiversity future. But when we look at how designers and also technical designers design now, it is very much in a user-centered way. And you see in this picture how much that is limited, that we really need to look at futures like I did with you before, but we also need to look at other stakeholders than the immediate user of a technology. And many of these users are non-humans. And you maybe noticed that my question to Lisbeth also touched this field, that we would design rooftops for the welfare and decide which flowers and plants to plant because they are healthy for humans. But we need to broaden this field and really look at what is healthy and allows nourishment for non-humans. And there is a lot of developments already to enable that, but it's really a new approach of thinking. Because I wanted to mention these two examples here in the Netherlands. One is an initiative, I have to look it up, Nature in the Wijk, so nature in the neighborhood. And they identified typical animals which are city cohabitants to really point people to them and enable people to look at these. You see the names here, the house martin, the wild bee, the bat, the swift. This is our cohabitants. And by naming them and describing how they thrive in the city, people can take more care of them. The same thing is an initiative by 1040. I'm German speaking English and now Dutch. 104010, so 010 is the postal code of Rotterdam. And it describes the three plants on 7 animals typical for neighborhoods in Rotterdam. In the same way, you see them here, and to really make people realize that they have these cohabitants and they can take care of them. So now the next slides. And also in technology, we have amazing new ways to look at the city. And I also see around these technologies to see roofs. But there's also companies like Tigron. They develop platforms for digital twins, so to look at cities in a digital way. And what they did here is map the routes bats fly in the city and forage in the city to enable building the city in the way that bats can also find feed and fly. They function very differently from people. We don't see them anymore, but they are very, very important for the city ecology. So they should be in a digital twin. Then next one, we have these beautiful garden images of Alexandra Daisy Ginsburg, a designer who looked at gardens from the way bees look at them. So you can really imagine what a wonderful, nourishing garden for a bee looks like and care for that. And finally, a last example, also here from Rotterdam, the Living Light Park and Living Light Lights by Nova Innova and Plant E. This also has been prototyped already, providing lighting and plants, which is not only better for parks and animals because we have much too much light, but which is also completely energy neutral because it is fed by the chemistry of the roots of the plants. So these are all examples of how different our design would be, our design of cities would be, if we would broaden our approach and how we look at the city. So I think the future of the biodiversity really depends on us broadening our smart city approach also to an ecocentric one. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Anja. And then also for the question of our last speaker, for Anja, do you maybe have a question for Anja, Indy?
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I suppose I was wondering, what would a world look like if humans, machines, and ecology was thriving simultaneously? Why does technology have to go backwards for nature to thrive?
I don't think I would be a protagonist of saying technologies had to go backwards. But I think we should use technology to enable these transitions we need to make. And technology should work together with nature or with non-humans and humans in a harmonious way, which has a lot of challenges. And I think we need to work on approaches and also on ethics to make trade-offs for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're now up to our last speaker. You see the sun shining. Some people already go and sit in the sun because they were too cold. So you can also sit in the sun, only not there because that's our view. Last speaker, Indy Johar. He's the co-founder and director of the Dark Matter Labs in London. He will tell you more about it. I think it's an international and multidisciplinary design team working across the globe to develop new methods for system change. We're very happy to have you here, Indy. Can I have a warm welcome for Indy Johar?
Hello. Okay, firstly, I'm going to give away a few of my minutes. If you all get up, shake yourself about, just warm up, because I know you're all cold. Let's warm up. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm gonna do this quickly. So I'm not gonna be either optimistic. I'm gonna try to describe. I think does it just forward? Yes. Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about. I think what you're doing here is really important, really, really important. But I want to give it a different frame. And I want to give it a slightly different and challenging frame. I'm not going to talk about ourselves for a moment. You can find out about us. I want to talk about what the future looks like a little bit. Because I think we're talking about the future largely ignoring the facts that are coming at us at very fast rates. So, how many homes do you think all of Europe can afford to build with the Paris Accord? All of Europe. How many homes a year? 0? If you're generous, you can get to 140,000 homes. If you're generous. All of Europe. All of Europe. UK alone wants to build 300,000. Berlin, I think, is looking at 350,000 homes over the next 4 years. So the reality of the world that's coming at us and even the reality of our carbon budgets are completely different. The most sustainable low-carbon house produced in Denmark, right? The most sustainable, got to 2.5 kilograms of carbon per meter squared per year. 2.5. Went from 9.5 average to 2.5. We need to get to 0.4 kilograms. You know, you've heard all these myths about we need to retrofit old cities. We need to retrofit all our cities. We don't have the carbon budgets. We don't have the materials. We don't have the labor forces to do this. So I want us to start to engage some of the hard realities of the world that we're facing. And in that context, I think we need to start to talk about the future in some of the kind of deep structural challenges that we're facing. Within the next 2 to 3 years, right, we are almost certainly going to face some form of food crisis. Already, food has gone up by 40% in terms of prices in the UK and 19.8% this year, just in terms of food prices. If you look at the mental health of the city, if you look at any of these big issues, the biodiversity losses. So what does this really mean? In which context? The numbers are extraordinary. 45% atmospheric CO2 increase since the 1950s. The cost to produce oil, right? So it used to cost something like 1 barrel of oil used to produce 100 barrels of oil. Now 1 barrel of oil produces only 10 barrels of oil. Our civilization as a whole, just to give you some ideas, 8 billion humans live on 500 billion human units worth of energy a year. So we're a civilization of 508 billion human units worth of energy. Now here's the killer. Between 2019 and 2020, all the installed renewables in the world from history were not equivalent to the global energy demand increase. So the increase in global energy demand was greater than all the installed renewables. So if you want to talk about the scale of the transition, you start to talk about it in a very, very serious way. You talk about actually topsoil losses, massive losses in our topsoil, the number of crop cycles left in our topsoil, nutrition loss that's on the topsoil, because soil is not understood as an asset. People talk about the trees, but they don't talk about the soil. How we value things is fundamentally out of kilter. Fishing, look at dead zones. We've got 40% decrease in plankton around the world, and they're systemically creating dead zones. I'll get to a reason why all this is important. Massive toxification. Pretty much all of us have got microplastics in our bloodstream already. So the scenarios that we're painting of the future aren't tomorrow. They're not possible scenarios. We're in them. We're right smack bang in them. And we've got diminishing returns on democracy, all sorts of issues on that level. The extinction level event, right? The number of species dying is faster than effectively, it's a sort of 1,000 times faster than normal. So when we talk about the ecological destruction, it's not some myths. Since the 1970s, if you look at the ecological destruction we've seen, is of an order of magnitude. Endemic diseases, pandemics, debt. Now this is where it gets interesting. These are all the accords. Nothing has changed. So when you look into the future, you're looking at a city which is going to be maybe up to 4.5 degrees warmer on average. Even if we go to 2 degrees global or 1.5 degrees global, cities will be significantly warmer. Significantly so. So you want to know what the problem is? This is all the wild animals in the world. All the wild animals. The zebras, the elephants, all of them. That's them. That's cattle. Right? That is, I think, that's sheep. That's all the people in the world by ton. So I want you to see the world. When people talk about the Anthropocene, it's not an idea. This is the zoo of all the animals in the world. That's the world we're living in. You want to talk about 2070? This is the projections of the 2070. All these areas around the world become actually not hospitable to human species, largely in terms of climatic environments. That is billions of people. So now start thinking about the future. So addressing that reality at a European level, energy demand, We've got a massive transformation in energy, massive transformation of our agricultural systems, massive transformation in our critical raw materials. So let's talk about minerals for a bit. When people talk about our future, we have a shortage of copper. We have a shortage of timber. We have a shortage of sand. So this is not some radical future. We're doing work around what does material net zero cities look like? Cities which do not import materials at all. What does that really mean? Because the reality is we don't have the carbon budgets. 80% of our ecological destruction is coming from our mineral mining around the world. And if we move to any form of electrified economy, that will massively increase because we go from an oil economy to a mineral economy. Massive destruction. So the question then becomes is, our cities are going to have to dematerialize? So the average Swede consumes 27 tons of matter a year. The global average is 2 tons. So we're going to have to massively dematerialize our economies. We can't afford the materials. We're going to have to massively make our materials circular, durable, and also biomaterially driven. Now, everyone says timber. We have a timber shortage already. It will take us 30 years to rebuild that supply chain. 30 years if we start investing now. So timber is not some simple solution. And then we've got to make sure every timber that we plant and we use, that tree, is sequestered for 100 years. So if you're using timber on the floor, outside decking, which is then going to be composted and released in 20 years, that doesn't work. Right? Sacrificial timber does not work. 100 years, you've got to sequester that for it to have meaningful use in terms of carbon and kind of carbon sequestration and any of those factors. So we're going to have a fundamental transformation in our economy. Now, when you start to look at that, that changes the nature of our cities. It changes how we build them. We cannot afford to build the homes of the future. So how are we going to equitably use our materials? How are we going to equitably use the materials we already have in our city? How are we going to equitably use the environments that we already have? And this is where roofs become really important. Right? That's my killer. All the way to get here. Because that is an extraordinary amount of space and available use that doesn't require new infrastructure, new investments on the ground, and we're going to have to build it in radically different ways. Right? You're going to look at, yes, structural timber. Yes, you're going to look at textiles. I think most of the future is going to be textile woven fabrics over roofs in different formats. So we're going to have to change our material ecosystems. We're going to have to release space. If you are not using space, right? Material sufficiency. If you're not using space, you're taking opportunity for someone else to use it. That is a social cost. Imagine a different type of tax system that looks into those futures. Because material hoarding in itself becomes a social problem. So the future looks radically different in different formats. So living into this future also invites all sorts of reimaginations of our relationship to the world. So climate change is not just a crisis of, it's not a crisis of carbon, it's a crisis of our relationship with the world. So, in terms of that chair, are we custodians of that chair? Are we custodians of the plastic, end-of-use plastics of that chair? Are we custodians of the end-of-use chrome on the legs of that chair? No, we don't give a shit. Because we buy and we let go. We're not custodians. We're not responsible agents in a chain of custodianship. So the idea of buying and selling becomes an anathema when we have to become custodians of those relationships. How do we go from a human dominion world of ownership, which allows us to ignore the costs on the development side and the end-of-use side, to a new form of treaty and relationship with the world? So my hypothesis to you is that the era of kind of human dominion and ownership comes to an end when you start to recognize we're living in an entangled world. An entangled world with different forms of relationship. And you're already seeing some of this, whether it's rivers being made self-sovereign, whether you're seeing actually forests being made self-sovereign in different formats, the rights of nature being developed. Now, why I'm saying all this, it goes back to kind of the workshop we were having amongst our group. Who owns the roof? What is a roof? Is it an interface? Is it a responsibility? Is it a social liability that if you're not using it well, you're introducing social costs? What is our theory of relationship to the roof? And I think that's going to all get reinvented. And it's going to have to be reimagined in different ways. I could use this example of a street tree. Any street tree out there is actually a social cost, is a cost on the balance sheet of local authorities, because they have to worry about the maintenance and they worry about the insurance. But all the ecological benefits, whether it's flood risk management or whether it's actually heat island effect, a tree-lined street reduces temperatures by 12.5 degrees on road maintenance costs, all the way to heat energy requirements of that street, those are all ignored because we don't value all the benefits on the other side. So we're accounting for the costs, but we're not valuing the social benefits. How do we reimagine these social benefits in different formats? How do we imagine This is a piece of work, sorry about the graphics, but this is a piece of work that we did on the social cost of a badly designed private house. All the social costs generated by a badly designed private house. It gets rid of this illusion of there being a private and a public. Value is entangled. How do we govern that entanglement of value? And I think roofs live in that world of entanglement. And you could see some of this stuff in the High Line. We did some work on the High Line in New York. Many of you will know it. It cost $174 million to make. But here's what. It generated $3.48 billion in land value uplift that was entirely privatized. So there was a civic good, which was effectively all the value was privatized. How do we rebuild the economy of civic common goods in that format? And there are loads of interesting ways of doing that. I love this quote. Just to talk about even our relationship with materials, right? This is indigenous people in Taiwan, and they talk about you need to get permission from the river to borrow the stones nearby to build their houses and promise to return it when they've ended up finishing their use. Imagine a world with a completely different relationship to the materials in those futures. And this can be technologically assisted. We can build lots of interesting things. And you've got interesting examples, Embassy of the North Sea and various other things. So what happens if a forest owns itself? What happens if the roof owns itself? What happens if a building is self-sovereign? What happens if even the camera is self-sovereign? What happens in this future beyond ownership, where we actually recognize things as their own agents, not in dominions of the world? What happens when you unbundle the rights of a building, where the roof rights of the building can be let go and actually given to common use in different formats? How do you unbundle this? This technology can actually open up new ways of seeing our relationship with the world in really radical formats. And I think we have to reduce the friction of actually these common goods and allow them to be pooled and organized in really radical different ways. And there's loads of interesting things that I can talk about in terms of how you can start to do different accounting structures and other frameworks around that, which I think is really critical. So my major point is that actually roofs are going to be critical. We will not have the capacity, the material economy, to expand our city and build spatial justice in the ways that we've done, saying, we'll just build some more homes. We won't have that. And how we look, what we used to talk about brownfield investment, brownfield redevelopment. Roofs are going to be the future. Roofs and elevations are going to be the brownfield developments of the future. And you're building the economy of that transition. And the question is, how do we build it in a really radically new way? Not just materially, but actually in terms of how we govern, own, and share the value of that. With that, I thank you, and thank you for all the great work that you're all doing.
Also a question for you, Indy, I think. But first, I'm only thinking I have to look this back on YouTube. This was so much information and so inspiring. Someone really wants to ask a question, or you have to go to the toilet. So sorry, in between you. Yes, all speeches are recorded. Yeah, listen to this again. Yeah, we do. It goes to... Mirjam, where are you? Oh, there she is. I'm going to ask her to ask a question to Indy. Do you dare?
Yeah.
Yes, come over here. Because she's not the speaker, but I want her on stage. Because Miriam is our rooftop hero of last year. And after this, we're going to the rooftop hero of this year.
So, Indy, you talk about pace, right? And the challenges are speeding in a far more faster pace than we transform. So do you have any ideas of how to speed up with all of us?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think first thing is to change the frame of the conversation. I think we've forgotten certain things. Like, I think we need to be thinking about the next 20 years more akin to how redevelopment of Europe happened after World War II. Think like that. Don't think like the last 40 years. It's irrelevant. The scale of transformation is more akin to rebuilding Europe because the foundational systems, energy, food, water, minerals are all changing. All of the foundational minerals of our economy, the matters of our economy are changing. So we have to start to think at that scale of transformation. This isn't a minor continuum variant. And I think we have to talk, we spoke about how Rotterdam was rebuilt after World War II, right? I think we're going to rebuild Rotterdam, right? We have to start to think like we're rebuilding Rotterdam. It's fundamentally out of order. If you looked at the carbon and energy and the mineral uses, we're out of whack. Like, the future is not electric vehicles. Anyone who tells you this is lying to you. They're lying. If you look, a typical electric vehicle, I'm sorry, I'm just going to do a typical electric vehicle, right? I'm going off on one, but the future, typical electric vehicle will take nearly 200,000 miles, after which it starts to consume less carbon than an electric vehicle, than a normal petrol vehicle, right? The amount of mineral damage, so 80% of our biological losses are driven by minerals, right? 80%. So the amount of damage we're going to do as we expand our mineral economy, which we will do, we will go from an oil to mineral economy. We're going to have to do it in radically different ways. So think of this, and my major point is start seeing this much more like World War II rebuild. It's not a marginal conversation. You are rebuilding Rotterdam. We are rebuilding London. We are rebuilding all of Europe in a radically different way. And that also invites us to challenge all our theories of ownership, governance, equity, justice. All those things are going to be up on the table in a way they've never been. And I think that's happening everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Indy. And yes, this goes. I saw also Matthijs nodding here. Yeah, this is a really good metaphor. We need to rebuild Rotterdam again. That shows some urgency there. Miriam, you were chosen rooftop hero, and not for nothing, because you have a really nice, innovative project going on in Tilburg. And then the question is, how was your last year as a rooftop hero, and did it help in any way?
Well, the honest question of the honest answer is it's not been easy ever since. However, I don't think it's related to the Dakheldprijs. On the contrary, yes, we are trying to establish a rooftop farm in Tilburg of 2,000 square meters, well, I think everybody knows funding and the costs are highly. They've risen the last year.
You have to put it somewhat
a bit
closer, or
yeah?
mine
Okay.
is way harder.
Okay. We are very busy with the funding, and I think in two ways the Dakheldprijs has been very helpful to us by this challenge, because on the first hand, personally, for me as as the initiator, to keep continuing, because we need, the funding is a big issue and we need many partners, and it was really encouraging to keep going the talks and discussions. And then the second thing that it really helped with is that we put the Dark Health Prize, the picture we made last year, it's in all our pitch decks. And it took a while for people to realize how special that is. But for example, a couple of weeks ago, we got a big new partner together with us. So we are heading towards complete funding.
Wow. And you've seen some posters, and there on the side, there's also the poster of Miriam. She will be there also. You can ask her everything about her thing. But now we, of course, are going to the Rooftop Hero of 2023. And thank you, Miriam. Yeah. Oh, you stay here because she's gonna. No, you have to. Oh, what are we gonna? You stay there. Don't go away because we need you to give the prize to the next Rooftop Hero. And we always do that with someone of the board of our foundation. And may I invite the chairman of our board, Marjolein Masselink. And she's gonna deliver us the jury report of the Dak Health, the Rooftop Hero Prize of this year. And we are very curious, I'm very curious who it will be. Do you have the prize? Then I give it already to Miriam.
Yes, it's the most difficult part because it's very tiny.
Nobody saw that.
Well, I'm thrilled to read to you the jury report. We are very happy that nowadays so many people advocate rooftop use. On the other hand, that fact makes it so much harder to choose a rooftop hero. Which rooftop advocate stands out of the crowd? For starters, it must be someone who has already been preaching the rooftop gospel for a long time. It must not be someone who's limited to green rooftops or blue or red or yellow rooftops or simply calls for multifunctional rooftops. The person we were looking for tries to find the most feasible balance of everything that's possible. Our Rooftop Hero of 2023 has the best of both worlds. Our hero is the rare combination of being a dreamer, of being very passionate about sustainability, and of the changes that we need to make to achieve that. But also of being pragmatic and very aware of the limitations in finance, policy, and construction. Our hero is educated as an engineer, so he's aware of these things. Our hero does not only give advice about possibilities, he actually realizes green rooftops. Our hero's company is somewhere in between an idealistic and a commercial organization. And speaking of the best of both worlds, he does great work for the city of Rotterdam, and as well as great work for the city of Amsterdam. Also, we think that he's ready to go international. And that is why he's here today, of course. So it is with great pleasure that we want to honor with the title of Rooftop Hero 2023, someone who's possibly the hardest working person in rooftop change. And someone who's convinced that what's needed to change the rooftop landscape is no less than a revolution. We declare, as our Rooftop Hero 2023, Jan Henk Tigelaar of Rooftop Revolution.
Well, I'm thrilled, people. When the word revolution fell, then I thought, oh, maybe it's me. Wow. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm speechless and very thankful and impressed by the words that were just spoken, and yeah, very motivated to continue the hard work that we've been doing, and to see the crowd that we are doing it with growing and growing. And well, also the last speaker in he inspired me to be more revolutionary even than we already are, more radical maybe even. This is there's a lot of work to do, but seeing this crowd here and receiving this prize, yeah, it is very motivating. Thank you very much.
And since you're here, maybe you can make use of the stage by telling something you are doing on the 14th of September.
Yeah, I was asking Leon and Nikki, maybe you can stand on stage and say that the next thing that people should go to is the Rooftop Symposium. And now I'm saying it myself, so that's you were probably, maybe you, I don't know if you were.
No, I knew nothing.
Oh, you knew nothing. Okay. So this is of course very inspiring to talk to each other about what's happening on the roofs. But we will continue the conversation at the end of summer, the 14th of September. We have a great location. We will be at the Inspirium in Kuik of Ebon Tree Nursery. This is a very green venue, and we hope to see a lot of you there again. And we have a reduction in pricing during the Rotterdam Rooftop Days. So if you get your ticket this weekend, it's cheaper. So go ahead and buy it.
So we all go now into the sun. We have, I don't dare to say, cold drinks for everyone. We have snacks for everyone. And if you stay a bit longer, we have a lot of food. We have dinner together. Very lovely that you all have been here. Thank you very much, all the speakers. And let there be warmth and good rooftops.